Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am Christy Mahan of Escape Artist Holidays Dream Vacations. Tonight is another fun night in our We Will Travel Again series of webinars. I am joined by some colleagues tonight. My good friend Nancy Shirey, who also owns Dream Vacations down in Delaware. You can reach her at Stowaway Travels. And we are also joined by Claude Gerard of Azamara Cruises. He's going to teach us some wonderful stuff about a very special cruise line tonight. And we have a double header in shape for this evening. We're going to talk about two countries tonight. You get two for one Thursday night. We're going to talk about Scotland and Greece. And the reason why we're doing both of these tonight is because the way Azamara does what they do best. And that is these intensive journeys where their sailings really do spend a significant amount of time with one country, getting into small ports, big cities, and really helping you immerse yourself in a particular culture. So we're going to hear about Azamara from Claude, but I do want to recommend everybody jot down the URL you see before you, the We Will Travel Again events link. You can always go there and see the soon-to-be upcoming presentations. We've got Bermuda coming up. We've got some Northern Lights countries coming up. That'll be fun. And you can also link to past events like the Galapagos and Italy. So you can stay up to date on what you may have missed and get excited about what's to come in the future. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Claude. And Claude, you may take over the screen sharing from here.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Yes, let me get my screen going. And here we are. It is a pleasure being here tonight. If the screen wants to come on, which I think it is now, right?
There you go.
Let me rearrange a few things here. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Claude Gerard, and I am the sales manager for the Northeast Territory. Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Nancy, for having me. I've been with Azamara now for 1.5 years, and I'm very, very proud to work for this very special brand. And as Christy said earlier, what we do best and what we've done best for the last 17 years is what we call a full country immersion experience. These are 3 of our vessels here: the Quest, the Journey, and the Pursuit. And most people love the experience on Azamara because those ships are mid-size ships. They're not 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 people, and they're not too small with 200 people, but they are, so we say, the ideal size with 700 guests, 350 cabins. We go all over the world on all 7 continents, and as Christy said earlier, we hug the coastline, and because of our perfect size, we're able to take you to smaller seaports than the big ship would not be able to go to. So, as I just said, why Azamara? Because we connect people to people. We want you to come back from your travel with Azamara with a very enriched and deep travel experience. You've had time to connect with people locally. You've had time to explore the region. And there's a couple of ways that we do that better than anyone else. We have a longer stay in port, and we have more overnights in port than any other cruise line out there. And here are some numbers. 2019, 2020, 2021. Well, obviously the numbers in 2020 do not quite count, and we know why. But we like to stay longer in port. So let me run something by you. Most cruise lines are eager to get their guests back on board by 4, 5, sometimes 6 o'clock for cocktail and move on to the next port. We are the opposite. In many, many cities in Europe, mostly, we stay in port until 9, 10, 11. We want you to see this city by day and by night. Have dinner either on board and go back to the port, or have dinner in the port and see that city by night. People just got out of work, and we want you to have a feeling for what it's like you know, for the working people to get out of work during the summer and have longer dinner and connect with the local. This is what Azamara is all about. We also have the highest overnight stay. So when you go to St. Petersburg, for example, there's so much to do. We overnight for 3 nights. Barcelona, 2 nights. Nice in south of France, 1 night. Rio de Janeiro, 2 nights. So you really can take on being there and organizing a stay in Brazil, and you have 3 or 2 night stay and explore the region fully. This is what Azamara has been known for since day one, full destination immersion. These are pictures of our ship. As I told you, they are mid-sized ship, what we call, and can go into the fjord of Norway, or along the Chilean fjord, or into little seaport in Brittany, France, or Bordeaux. This is Marseille in France. We are docked right in port, and we're proud of this. Major and bigger cruise line dock you 20 miles away and bus you to town. This is not what we do. We are right there in the heart of the action. The other way we give Christy and Nancy's guest, meaning all of you ladies and gentlemen, a great experience is by organizing country-intensive voyages. We do that in 13 countries all over the world. And I'm going to show you an example of what those country-intensive voyages are. Obviously, as it says, it focuses on one country and one country only. So you see as many seaports as you can and get a feel for what this country and all these regions are about. So we have a Spain intensive next year in May. We have an Ireland intensive next year in August. Usually we have several of them. We have 4 Spain, we have 3 Ireland. Here we have a Greece intensive, which is our best seller since day one. Greece is on everybody's bucket list, and Greece has been doing well with Azamara, especially the Greece intensive, where you see smaller island and smaller seaports. You can see the itinerary on the right side, and you go to places I can't even pronounce because I've never heard of them, and that's the beauty of it. Volos and Skiatos, well, Athens, obviously we know, Milos, Paros, beautiful little seaport lost in the islands of Greece. Later on, Christy and Nancy will talk to you about Scotland and Greece, so stay tuned for those intensive voyages. So, As Amazing Evening is an event that everybody take advantage of on board. It is complimentary and it's for everybody on board. And what it is that, first of all, our brand is quite known for the Azamara as Amazing Evening. We basically choose a port during the itinerary and we organize an event with cocktail and past hors d'oeuvre, and it can be in opera. This is a courtyard in Slovakia where with a full-scale opera there. It can be tenors in Greece, it can be a Roman theater along the Italian coast, it can be a palace in Turkey, but this is our signature event called As Amazing Evening, and people are raving about it. Azamara offers a very casual way of traveling. This is our white night. It's the last night of the voyage, so bring your whites. Everybody dresses in white, and it's a lot of fun. There's dancing, and there's a live band, there's a concert, and it is the famous Azamara White Night. When I said earlier, Azamara's experience is very casual, is that if you want to dress up one night, that's fine. But it's really not what we are about, because we're not considered an ultra luxury cruise experience. You have ultra luxury, you have more mass experience, and we are right there in between on the upper level. You don't have to bring a jacket, you don't have to bring a tie, you can be dressed in slacks and open collar shirts at night. It's really up to you. So Azamara is a very casual cruising experience. This is another image of the Azamara White Night by the pool deck. While we're looking at the pool deck, you can see all around that there is a jogging track. For those of you who are very much into working out and running every morning, we have a beautiful spa as well. Oh, well, there we go. Here's another pool deck. This must be in the middle or very early morning. So it's a wonderful ship, wonderful ship. Now I'm going to show you pictures of the inside facilities. This is the main entrance to the ship. By the way, all three are identical in terms of capacity and more or less design. What changes is the artwork, obviously, because it's one of a kind. The founder of Azamara was very keen on art collection, and he's got one-of-a-kind pieces on all three ships that are quite amazing. This gigantic necklace that you see there up the stairs is from Africa. I assume no one wore it because that would be scary unless it's King Kong. I don't know. But anyway, this is your boutique hotel at sea, if I may say. This is one of my favorite area on board. It's called the MOSAIC Cafe. And why it is my favorite place is that for the early birds, either you come from all over the world, you're jet lag, or you're simply an early riser, this opens very early in the morning at 5 o'clock with baristas from Eastern Europe. And it's interesting because most people gathering there early in the morning are actually from Europe. You know, they love their little espresso with biscotti before the full breakfast. I love the MOSAIC Cafe. Now, you have, in addition to our main dining room, two specialty restaurants that are not complimentary, and Christy will go into details later on or at some other time. You do need a reservation for Prime C Specialty Dining Restaurant, which is more of a steakhouse. And you do need a reservation for Aqualina Specialty Dining Restaurant, which is more Mediterranean and Italian. They're wonderful restaurant, both of them, and they are at a cost of $30 per person for a beautiful meal without the wine. This is, as I said, in addition to our main dining room. This is fairly new on board 2 out of the 3 ships. The third one is being reconfigured to accommodate this den piano bar. It's quite large, and in that space used to be a casino. And you know what? We should have never had casino, just simply because we spent so much time in port. And as you know, when you're in port, you cannot play in a casino. So I don't know what the founders were thinking, but the casinos are gone. It's been replaced by the Den Piano Bar. Go before dinner, go after dinner, go at 2 in the morning. It's open quite late. It's very lively. It's got a piano, and it's a lot of fun. I'm going to show you now pictures of the cabins on board. This is a brand new suite. We only have 2 of them on each ship, and it's called the Club Spa Suite. Simply because it's next to the spa. It's not a very original name, but that's what happens. Please note on the right side, in the far of the picture, a glass enclosed jacuzzi. Not a bad thing, overlooking Portofino or Rio de Janeiro. Every suite on Azamara comes with a butler. You have the Club Continent Suite, and you have the entry level called Club Veranda Stateroom, which is our best seller. You have 2 levels below this called the Ocean View Room, which has a round window porthole, and the inside or interior room, which has no window at all. And believe it or not, some people are on a budget. They want the experience of going to small seaports. They don't care about the accommodation, and the inside cabin sell quite well. I do not recommend it. You want to be on your balcony. I'm just saying they sell quite well. Now, here's the big question. What is included in all this? Well, anybody will tell you out there that what sets us apart from our competition is that we are an inclusive product. I'm not going to go through every line here. Christy will tell you more about it later. But basically, other than the spa, the shore excursions, and the specialty dining, Everything else is included. You have the complimentary As Amazing Evening, you have the white party, you have beautiful spirits, international beers and wine. And Christy, I forgot to tell you, I do have the 3 packages available that I can send you a picture of later. Bottled water, soft drink, coffee, a laundry service. Some of our cruises are 17 days when you go to Asia. We're hopeful you do wash your clothes, so complimentary laundry, and much more. So we do not call it an all-inclusive product for the reason I told you. A few things are not included, but overall, everything's there. Tips, gratuity, and much more. So this is really all I have to tell you tonight, because Christy is going to take over and talk to you about the destination. We do hope to see you on Azamara. We have worked very closely with Christy to offer you, ladies and gentlemen, a very special incentive tonight, which Christy and Nancy will share with you. I am leaving you all, and I thank you for your time. Please do consider Azamara, and we'll see you soon on board. Good night. Thanks for your time.
That was great, Claude. Thank you. Does anybody have questions specific to what Claude's already presented? I can tell you that that smaller ship feel is a very nice way to travel. Nancy and I have both been on a ship the same exact size as this, and it really is kind of an intimate, enjoyable size for a cruise ship. It's not so small that you feel like you're walking into everybody that you know, but it's also small enough that you make friendships and conversations. In a lot of respects, the experience is similar to river cruising, because you do get right into these smaller ports. You have these kind of engaging experiences. I know that there's also entertainments and things that coordinate with the locale. So it is a very nice way to make a vacation happen on a mid-sized ship, as Claude suggested.
Well, and I think you said it best, Christy, when you said the smaller ships really give you a nice sense of intimacy. Not only do you get to meet a lot of your fellow cruisers on board, but we always like connecting with the crew on board too.
Yes.
You get to know your servers and your bartenders, and even you certainly see the captain and the fellow officers, certainly much more so than you do on some of the larger cruise lines.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Claude. It was very nice to have him. And now I'm going to share with you guys the 2 itineraries that we wanted to feature tonight. And I will be perfectly honest with you. I picked these because they're fantastic and I would love to do them. So I do a fair amount, I'm sure Nancy does this too, a fair amount of wishful thinking as we book trips for our clients. So what I'll do here is I will just give you an overview quickly of the Scottish Intensive Voyage. This is a 12-night trip, and it starts in Amsterdam and it ends in Dublin, but the rest of the journey is entirely in Scotland. And whenever and I know Nancy does this too, whenever we have clients that go to Europe, especially for a cruise, we always recommend you go a couple of days early or extend your trip at the end by a few days so that you can really take advantage of visiting the ports that are on either end of your trip. And this is definitely the case with this cruise. Amsterdam is a great city to spend a couple of days in, as is Dublin, and you'll see that as we kind of work our way through. So Amsterdam is a great walking city. It's a great place to get lost in and enjoy things in and around a very unique city built on all these canals. Certainly plenty of cyclists milling about, but that is not the main event tonight. Of course, we are talking about Scotland. And your next day after you disembark from Amsterdam, you arrive in the port of Leith, which is the port city nearest to Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland. It's the biggest city in the country, and you get an overnight in port. So right off the bat, you are enjoying one of those Azamara benefits. This is a picture of the Royal Mile, which is the main thoroughfare in Edinburgh. A great deal of it is pedestrian only, which is nice. It's filled with pubs and great restaurants, shopping, museums, and of course the two big attractions in town, first of which is Edinburgh Castle. This is at one end of the Royal Mile. It's up on this mountain, like a promontory at the end of the Royal Mile, and it's called the Rock. Very exciting name. But in this castle, it's got a great history. It's the Scottish royal jewels are here, much like in London. You can see the British royal jewels, right? The Scottish ones are here. It's a great museum, and just you really kind of get a sense of all the history that is here in this castle. And there's the changing of the guard here as well. If you've seen the picture in your mind, a picture of the beefeaters in London, right? The guys in the red suits who never flinch an inch, and they've got the big black hats. Same hats here, but the guys are in kilts. Same rules apply. You can't make them flinch. On the other end of the Royal Mile is Holyrood Palace. This is the home of the monarch when visiting. So Queen Elizabeth spends a week here at the beginning of every summer. But you can also tour here when she's not in residence. It has a great history, just like the castle. And so when you take a tour of these places, you're going to experience a lot of what that is. And I'm sure you can respect the fact that Scottish are wonderful storytellers. So you don't just get to hear it. This is this and this is that. Everything has a story, and you'll be able to enjoy that while you're here. If you go in August, you might be lucky enough to enjoy the famous Edinburgh Tattoo. This is a huge festival. They use Edinburgh Castle as the backdrop of it, and it features dancers, and many of them, bagpipers, a lot of singers, you name it. It's a huge cultural festival. You can enjoy smaller versions of this, local ones, throughout the course of the year. So if this is something you'd like to work into your vacation whenever you go to Scotland, and you have flexibility in your timeline, work with your travel agent. We'll probably be able to arrange that for you. So after you spend your 2 days in Edinburgh, and I absolutely expect you to go out at night and eat in a pub and enjoy yourself a little wee dram of scotch, you're going to head off to the next day's port, which is in Dundee. Great, quaint city on the coast. It has this very cool modern design museum called the V&A in Dundee, and some of our port cities here in the States, like Boston has them, Baltimore has them, these great old masted ships that you can tour. That's the kind of thing you can see and do in Dundee. Also, if you took this excursion, about 40 minutes from the port is Glamis Castle. Glamis Castle has a great history. It's a little different looking, right, with these kind of turreted roofs and stuff. They're really interesting little conical roofs. This castle has a very interesting history. It dates back to the 1300s, and you have to tour it when you go. You can't just kind of mill around in it, because it is a residence to this day to the Earl of Glamis, I guess. So you do take a tour in it, and you'll hear all about the current royal family, because there's a family connection here as well. Any of you have seen the movie The King's Speech about Queen Elizabeth II's parents? Her mother lived here as a child. So there's a lot of connectivity to that film. Actually, there's like a few scenes in it that are here, but there's a lot of rich history here. This castle also has on its grounds its very own herd of Scottish cattle. What you can see here are those furry little guys. You would see them all over the place on farms and such up in Scotland. But when you get as far as kind of reaching inland, and it doesn't take that far, maybe a half an hour from the coast, once you get north up this way, you'll begin to see the Highlands, the famous Scottish wilderness, and its majestic beauty. Your next port of call is Invergordon, which is the port nearest Inverness. Inverness is a beautiful town. It's actually a pretty big city. And one of the things that is unique about Inverness is that it has a pretty big variety of churches. Not the way Rome has churches. This is different. This is kind of the kind of history of Christianity in the UK. So you've got a lot of different kinds of churches all in this little stretch along the River Ness. So you've got kind of the whole history of everything from, you know, Catholicism, Presbyterian, the Church of England, in this case, the Church of Scotland, and everything in between. Some beautiful churches and all along this beautiful walk. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can do a guided tour from church to church. And of course, there's a castle here too. You can't have a big city without a castle. So this is all along the River Ness in Inverness. So you might expect that the river flows from Loch Ness. Yeah, that Loch Ness, where Nessie's supposed to be. So lots of Ness, you get the hint. This is the famous Urquhart Castle, famous because it is the biggest landmark on the lake. It's a very long, deep lake. And of course, it's got lots of legends to go with it. You can tour this castle ruin, or you could also take a small boat ride out on the lake. Lots to see here. And again, it's in this majestic mountainous hillside area. Our next stop is now where we start to get into the places where you really have a difficult time going if you're on a land vacation. Once you get further north in Scotland, it's the islands around the northern part of Scotland that have some really unique things going on in them. The cruise next goes to the Shetlands, and you can stay right in Lerwick Harbor and mill around and have shopping and something great to eat and just kind of enjoy the town, or you can rent bikes and go further inland and enjoy the countryside. There's always something wonderful to buy in Scotland, and don't ever be afraid to eat the local eats. I've talked about this on other presentations. Enjoy what the locals eat. And this is in this picture up on the top, you'll see black pudding. Sounds a little intimidating, looks a little unusual, but I guarantee you, if you are brave enough to try it, you will be rewarded. It is quite delicious. One of the other islands that are up, groups of islands that are in the north, are the Orkney Islands. And these are much harder to get to from the mainland. You kind of have to time yourself with ferries and all this other rigmarole. Believe me, a cruise around the Scottish coast is definitely the way to see these islands. And what's really exciting up in Orkney is the archaeological site of Skara Brae. This is the oldest known inhabited village in this part of Europe. It might even be all of Europe. No, it's the northern part of Europe. This dates back to 3100 BC. So over 5,000 years old. And what you see here are these are individual, think of them as stone houses or huts. And the turf on top and the grass on top is kind of helping them stay together. It's protecting them from the elements. Skara Brae is right on this inlet, and it is affected by the rising tides and the waters. So it is precarious and it is precious all at once. And you can certainly walk around it and see into the past, so to speak. For those of you that might be Outlander fans, I hope there are a few of you in there because I certainly am, you might enjoy seeing some of these. There are all over the British Isles, not just here on the Isle of Lewis, standing stones. And these are the Callanish stones. Standing stones are from the Neolithic age. There are tons of Neolithic sites all over the British Isles. And some of them are more impressive, like this. These are very tall stones. Some of them are very low. They're knee-high. But the Callanish stones are both in a circle and have stones in the middle, much like Stonehenge. They just don't have, nothing is quite like Stonehenge, which is in the south of England. But you'll see these stones all over the place, but some of them are particularly special. And if you ever really want to have a long and tedious conversation about that, you just call me because I've seen a lot of them. Okay. So the next stop on the cruise is back on the mainland in Oban. And one of the things that Oban is most famous for is its distillery. Now, whether or not you are a lover of Scotch, you should take a distillery tour. Absolutely. You will be amazed at the kind of tradition and cultural things about the ingrained in their culture that go in with the distilling process. You'll learn about the angel's portion and why it's called the water of life. There's a great tradition. Again, here too, you get that kind of storytelling. It's not just like, oh, this is how you distill this and this is how it makes that. This is storytelling at its finest. And of course, the only place you can truly enjoy Scotch is in Scotland. Anywhere else it's whiskey or bourbon, but you can only enjoy a Scotch here in Scotland. And of course, at the end of any quality distillery tour, you are going to enjoy a wee dram of what they make. So you will get a chance to sample the local flavors, quite literally. Next, it's off to the port of Greenock, and that is the port closest to Glasgow. Glasgow is having its own bit of a renaissance in the last few years, excuse me. And it has quite a bit to see and do. And here too, you'll enjoy an overnight. This will be how your Scottish part of your Scottish journey ends. In the port area, you'll see another beautiful three-masted ship that you can visit. And there's also what next to that ship is a newly redone museum. It's called the Riverside Museum because it's right on the river. And it's got this cool new shape because it in profile kind of looks like a three-masted or a three-funneled ship in the abstract. It's a transportation museum, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it talks about the history of seafaring and trains and all sorts of things. It's actually just been reopened a couple of years ago to great fanfare. So it's a pretty neat thing to do that isn't a castle. Of course, there are art museums, and we didn't really talk about the art museums, but there's a wonderful art museum, small, in Edinburgh, and there's this one here in Glasgow, near the university, called Kelvin Grove. Some great museums and sites to see right in Glasgow. And of course, no matter where you are, when you get a chance, especially in Edinburgh or in Glasgow, when you're going to have a night in town, enjoy an evening at a pub so you can enjoy the local music. Music just kind of happens in the UK spontaneously. You know, the locals will just show up one night to the pub with their fiddle or their uilleann pipes or their accordion or a guitar. It truly does happen. I've seen it. It's actually kind of fun because it feels spontaneous, even though it's spontaneous for us, right? We're the tourists. For them, this happens every Tuesday night. But enjoy the local music. Enjoy the local bar scene. It's not a bar scene like we're used to. It's family night at the pub. It's great food. It's great laughs. We call it great crack. Enjoy some local music. And of course, while you're in any of these cities, partake of the local food. Remember, this is seafood extraordinaire. You're going to have fantastic seafood anywhere in a trip in Scotland, whether it's river trout, and salmon, or it's mussels and oysters. Try it all. I tend to go for a clam chowder or a fish chowder at lunch every day. It's going to be different no matter where you are because it's the fresh catch from right there, and it's going to be delicious. There's also great beef to be had here. So try it all. Don't be shy. Have the local fare and eat in local restaurants. Don't order the chicken parmesan. You know, don't make the American tourist mistake. Eat like the locals eat. And of course, there's great shopping to be had wherever you are when you travel. Just support those local merchants, you know, and artisans. You'll be able to take a bit of Scotland home with you. And as I said, the cruise actually ends in Dublin. So you get to cross the sea there and you end in Dublin. Dublin is definitely worth a couple of days. And I won't go into Ireland. It's an entirely other presentation, but I will give you two little glimpses. So the ship makes port in the morning, of course. So if you just spend that day and that night and then wait till the next morning, you can at the very least visit St. Patrick's Cathedral. That's this picture here on the bottom. And if you're lucky enough to be there while the choir or the pianist or the organist is tuning up, you'll be amazed at the acoustics inside this building. And this is the famous Halfpenny Bridge that goes over the River Liffey, right in town. And between these two things is Grafton Street, which is a fully pedestrian area, great pubs, great shopping, street music, the works. Also Trinity College is between them. So if you have an eye for the Book of Kells, you can see that too. So an easy day or more can be spent in Dublin. So that is in a really tight little nutshell. I can't believe I managed to do that so quickly. To squeeze in that Scottish intensive journey with Azamara. Before I start on the next thing, I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions you might have so far about what we're talking about. questions. You can put it in the chat box if that works for you, or you can raise a hand. All right. Well, I'm going to proceed, but if you do think of something, just pop it in the chat box and I promise I will get to your question. So we're going to proceed then to the other magical, mystical place. The two things these two countries have in common is they've got fantastic history. They're great storytellers. You're going to have great food. They've got really rich cultures. The people are so welcoming. They're so happy to bring you into their culture, to share with you their history. And it is a rich and wonderful place, both of them. So that and, you know, men in skirts, right? You've got guys in kilts, the changing of the guard over there in Edinburgh, and you got it here too in Athens at the changing of the guard at the Parliament. Totally different look, totally different look. Anyway, let's have some fun. Let's talk about Greece. This trip goes all around both the mainland coast and some islands. It also touches Turkey for one day. It is round trip from Athens. Okay. So the port nearest Athens is actually about 40-minute drive from Athens just because of the traffic and stuff, but it's called Piraeus. And come a day early. Again, come a day early, stay in Piraeus for the day. This area, Mikro Limano, is a beautiful place. It's great strolling along the promenade, nice food, great hotels, shopping and such. But the real reason you want to be in Piraeus a whole day early is so you can go here for sunset. This is Cape Sunion. It is the Temple of Poseidon, and it is spectacular at sunset. And if this isn't a way to kick off a vacation in Greece, I don't know what is. Well, that and eating at a really awesome restaurant, because that's also a great way to start. So your first day, you are going straight to Mykonos, the party island of the Mediterranean. Mykonos is, of course, known for its historic windmills, of which there are several that are fully operational, and there's quaint white houses and beaches. Beaches are the thing in Mykonos. And even though you won't be overnight here in Mykonos for the party scene, that's not you. You want to come here and enjoy the beaches. But definitely talk to your travel agent about your beach preference before you go, because there are a lot of beaches in Mykonos. There are 15 plus beaches in Mykonos. Not every beach is for everybody. For example, some are more family friendly and some are more nudist friendly. So you do want to know where you're headed before you go out. Otherwise you might get a surprise you're not expecting. Look at that blue water. It looks fantastic. It's so crystal clear. You can always rent beach chairs and umbrellas and most of the beaches, a good amount of the beaches have tavernas up against the way back here, away from the water, where you can get light snacks, lunches, drinks, of course, and usually there are cabanas that you can use for changing clothes and stuff. Your next stop is on the mainland in Volos, and just about a half an hour inland are these crazy, crazy geological formations, and this is where those amazing monasteries are. Before World War II, there were more than 24 monasteries perched on top of these unusual bluffs. Afterwards, there are only about a half a dozen of them that still remain today that are in use, but you can tour some of them. Of course, touring something like a monastery means you have to wear the appropriate clothing. It's got to be very modest, you know, skirts or pants below the knee for ladies, your shoulders covered, that sort of thing. But this is a very unique spot in the world. Not every place can boast something as unique as both this just view and this kind of, you know, closeness to God, right? The reason why these guys were out here in these monasteries was to be away from people and to commune. So it's a really unique place. The next stop is in the city of Thessaloniki. It's a whole area, but you're going to the port city itself. And it's the second biggest city in Greece after Athens. And it does have some great modern art. This is a really cool moving sculpture. It's kind of a living sculpture right against the waterfront called Umbrellas by a man whose name I'm going to trip over if I try to say it. So I don't know if I should. But it's both a modern and ancient city all at the same time. And it was also, it has a really rich history with the Byzantine Empire, which is kind of equidistant, right, between ancient Greece and modern times, right? So this church to Saint Dimitri, who's the patron saint of the area, has its own long history. This is a UNESCO site. It's right in town. You can walk right to it. It's got the remains of a 4th century church underneath it. And then the church that's on the street level today is actually not very old because it had suffered from destruction over the years, actually several times. But so the building that's upstairs, up on street level now, is more modern. It's only about 150 years old, but it does have some really beautiful relics from its previous versions. And it's got a really great story that really is indicative of the entire lifespan of the church, including its most ancient beginnings through, you know, the dawn of Christendom, and then into Byzantine times, World War II, Turkish invasions. It's got a really unique story to tell. Absolutely worth the visit. Our next port is Kavala, and it too has an old and new town. Most of these places, because they have existed for so very long, they have an old town that's behind the fortified walls that have been standing there for centuries. And then the new town, right? The new town has got places like where you see these people walking, the promenade, the palm trees, the port, restaurants and such. But the old town behind the fortress walls, where you've got more history, right? The historical stuff. But outside of Kavala is this other place. And this is another really important archaeological site. It's not far outside of town. It's about a 30-minute ride, 20-minute ride. And it was a city that was founded and named after Philip II of Macedonia, which doesn't mean much to anybody, but that's why its name is Philippi. But what's there are the remains of, again, a long history of occupation and early churches, a Greek amphitheater, lots of different periods of time kind of all on the surface. And although you have to use your imagination a fair amount, because what you see, certainly in the upper left-hand picture, are really just the footprint of buildings, right? So you do have to, you know, use a guidebook so you can understand what you're looking at, or take a tour. One of the things that's interesting about this site and a few of the other sites that you can visit along this tour is its connectivity to the apostles. So in this particular situation, St. Paul wrote his epistle to the people of this town. And even though he didn't visit it after he wrote that letter, these are the people he was talking to. So it really does kind of give you not just a piece of history and a piece of that part of Christianity, but it makes it contextual. It gives you that. This too is another place that does that. Patmos is a small island, and it has this big fortress up on the hill. It's called the Monastery of St. John. And this has got a very different story, but also more biblical connections. This island is the place where John wrote the Revelations. And he did so while he was kind of in exile on this island. And there's a cave you can visit here where he made his home. There's no pictures of it because they don't allow you to take pictures of it, but it's a very humble spot, as you might imagine. So there's a lot of history here that isn't just ancient Greek. And you can enjoy it as well as all the other things there are to do in the more modern parts of these islands and cities. Now, I did mention that this cruise makes a 1 day's trip to Turkey, and it's a long day. It's one of their late nights. If you remember at the beginning of the presentation, Claude was talking about how they do long nights in port, and this is a particularly long day, long night. The port of Kusadasi on the coast is a well-traveled port. You'll see a lot of cruise ships here, but there's two main events to see when you make port here, and the first of which is going to the ancient city of Ephesus. And here too, we've got a city that was founded in like 400 BC. It's got a huge history that's both Greek and Persian and Christian and Roman. I mean, everybody's had that claim to this city over the years. What you see before you is the front of the Library of Celius, which dates to the Roman times, and it was reconstructed in the 70s, actually. And what's off to the right in your picture, the lower part of the picture, is actually another gateway. It's kind of like a triumphal gateway in honor of Augustus. There's a lot to see in Ephesus. This is another place where we've got religious connections too. St. John did more proselytizing, as you were, and there's a tomb marking his death, his resting place here. So there's a lot of reasons to visit Ephesus. It's not just about its ancient Greek ties, which is kind of its more obvious things. There's more to it than that. And of course, if you're in Turkey, you've got to go to a Turkish market. Oh my gosh, great shopping, right? Now, beyond the obvious things like Turkish rugs and Turkish lanterns, which you should totally check out. You can easily witness a weaving demonstration. There are lots of opportunities for that. And that kind of stuff I always think is fascinating, because even though they're doing it for show, because they know you're an audience, they're working. This it's not like they're just slapping something together for the sake of the tourists. They're working, they're actually making those things in front of you. But it's a beautiful thing to see. Plus there's all these other handicrafts that you can buy. Big, small. Never be afraid to buy something, even if it looks a little fragile, because most places will ship them home for you. So you don't have to figure out, how am I going to get that vase in my suitcase? Although I've totally done that kind of stuff. But it is a late night in Kusadasi, so you can enjoy the evening. There are other things to see here in Kusadasi. There's a beautiful mosque to visit. It's a great walk along the promenade. It's lots to see. Next island we're off to is Rhodes. Rhodes has some really stunning beaches. A lot of these islands have stunning beaches, actually. I've been kind of neglecting the beaches pictures because it was hard to top the Mykonos one at the beginning. But, but Rhodes has some other history as well. Aside from there being some ancient Greek things there, of course, it was kind of the last jumping off point for the Crusaders on their way to or from the Holy Land. So some of its rather remarkable constructions are from the Crusaders, including this, the Palace of the Grand Masters. And you can tour it. It is huge. And it was it's almost indescribable. I mean, it's got rooms like you would expect in a castle, but it's got an enormous courtyard where they would do drilling exercises for the soldiers. But what's neat about Rhodes is because it was largely, the old Rhodes town was largely built up by this period of time for these guys, right? These soldiers and pilgrims going back and forth. It has this kind of look to it. It's got this kind of medieval vibe to it, which is different than all the other places you'd visit along this cruise that has more of an ancient flavor to it. So these streets are really different. They're really unique. You know, they've got these cool old wrought iron lanterns all over the place. The main square in Rhodestown has some cool little places to eat, and of course shopping and stuff. I'll tell you a little story about the first time I was ever in Rhodes. I was sitting in an outdoor cafe with my ex-husband, and we were enjoying a nice late afternoon lunch. And there was a man next to us, the next table. He was reading a German newspaper, and there was a French couple. They were sipping their ouzo or whatever, and they were chit-chatting. And there was a British couple. It was a very international scene, and we were kind of remarking on it, to ourselves, like, oh, wow, Rhodes is the really happening place for Europeans. And as we're sitting there, there was this group of like high school students, right? Like a field trip of high school students. And they were all sitting, like 20 or so kids, sitting on the stone stairs that were built into the wall that surrounds the fortified city. And it was very obviously that they were bored out of their wits getting a lesson, right? That's what kids do on a field trip, right? So we were just kind of laughing. Oh, it looks like even those kids get bored on field trips, right? And so as they start trudging off to go up this street, their footfalls started to sound like marching, whether they meant it to or not, because it's just a lot of kids all of a sudden moving all at once on cobblestones with all these narrow walls and stuff. It sounded like marching. So it made a lot of noise, right? All these kids kind of walking off. And these last two kids start quoting Monty Python. And I swear to you, every person in the restaurant, no matter what nationality were around us, we all finished the line. The kids said, "We are the knights that say," and everybody else said "me" at the top of their lungs. It was so funny. And then after the kids wandered off and they all had their laugh, we all started chatting with each other in broken English and broken French and trying to communicate with each other. It was just one of these random moments that happen when you're on vacation, where you just kind of open yourself up to the possibility of, new things. And it's the kookiest thing that happened in Rhodes, of all places. Anyway, your next stop on this fantastic journey is Crete. Crete is the biggest of the Greek islands, and this is one of its smaller ports. It doesn't go to Heraklion, which is where most of the big cruise ships goes. This goes to Agios Nikolos. And as you can see, it's a very quaint, quiet little port, right? They're little boats, right? They're personal watercraft, right? There's lots of restaurants all along the waterfront, little bars and shops and stuff. I want to impress upon you how you need to enjoy the local flavors while you're in Greece. Absolutely. One of the best meals I ever had was lunch on Crete. It was fantastic. Little plates, just enjoy a little bit of everything. You don't have to go crazy, although you'll want to, right? I mean, let's be honest. Part of the reason you go to Greece is to eat. But definitely enjoy the local fare all over the place, and Scotland too. I didn't mean to kind of short shrift them on the local fare comment, but there too, you know, great beef, awesome seafood. Enjoy the food where the locals eat. Now, don't just eat where the tourists eat. The best thing to see and do tourist-wise on Crete is, of course, to go to the Palace of Knossos. This is most famous, of course, for the Minotaur, right? The story of the Minotaur prowling the labyrinth beneath the palace. This is that place. This is that part of history. This is much older than most of the other Greek sites you will have seen, because this comes from an older culture. And what you see on the top picture, if you can see it at all, aside from the beautiful frescoes in this room, this is the throne room. It's part of the building that's actually still 3 stories tall. They have repainted some of the exteriors where they knew what color things were, because there was still enough pigment left from thousands of years ago to go by. It's a pretty sprawling complex. It can be crowded. There's not much shade. So if you're there when it's hot out, you definitely want to have like a parasol or something with you. But it's surrounded by olive groves. So it's in a beautiful high area in the middle of the island. And you can see the sea. It's a little further off. It's a little off in the distance. But you know, it's a magnificent spot, and it has this great legend that goes with it and a lot of history that goes with it. And of course, if you're familiar at all with the stories of Atlantis, right? There's a school of thinking that says the Minoan culture from which this civilization sits in was destroyed by a great tidal wave that came from the destruction of Santorini, which is your next stop. And if you've ever taken the time to look at Santorini like from above instead of the kind of traditional photograph, which you see right here, you'll realize that Santorini isn't just like this cool island that's got all these cliffs and all these like houses and churches are like perched on the edges of the cliffs. The cliffs are actually the remains of what is left of a completely blown to pieces volcano. It's a caldera. So this amazing view is of what was once the inside of a volcano. Once it just was destroyed, the ocean, because the sea came rushing in, and it made this even more beautiful spot. Santorini, of course, has become quite the tourist destination. It's one of those bucket list items. I've tried to go there 3 times and have been denied 3 times. It's still on my list. But it is a magical, mystical, beautiful place to go. Of course, there's archaeological sites here to visit too, but most people want to go here and just enjoy either the black sand beaches or the pink sand beaches, or go up to these beautiful cities up on top of the cliffside and take in the sights from here, especially, again, the sunsets. Lastly, we're going to head back to the mainland. And one of your last stops is on the Peloponnese, which is the southernmost part of mainland Greece, to Nafplio. And just a short ride from there is the ancient city of Mycenae. And if you're familiar at all with your ancient Homer, the king of Mycenae was the guy who said, oh, it's time for the Trojan War. We have to go get Helen. And this is where he came from. This is the famous Lion Gate at Mycenae. This too is quite ancient, more so than what you'll see in the next couple of slides at Athens. But again, a really remarkable archaeological site. When this stuff was, when this place was excavated in the 1700s, they found some really amazing stuff here. And it really brought all those legends, and they were just legends until then, really brought them to life. And lastly, of course, you're headed back to Athens, right? You make port in Piraeus and you have an overnight at the end of this trip. So you get to spend a whole day, a whole night, and then you can stay as long as you like once you're off the ship the next day. I absolutely suggest you spend a couple of days in Athens. There is plenty to see here. And of course, the biggest thing to do in town is to go up the Acropolis. It is, like so many of these places, Acropolis means high place, right? It's a high city. And so it's up on the highest part, this high bluff. It has these straight sides because they're actually bricked along the sides to keep it fortified. But the way you walk up it, you walk up and approach from in here. It's actually, the entrance is way over here on the left. And the marble stairs are so smooth because thousands of years worth of people climbing these marble steps have made them super soft. I mean, super smooth. It's kind of surprising. It's almost like, oh, geez, is this safe? Because it feels like it should be slippery. It's pretty remarkable. And of course, it's this, right? It's this. It's the Parthenon. She's magnificent, and quite honestly, you will almost always see some scaffolding or a crane or something. It took me a while to find a picture that didn't have one in it, because they're constantly putting it back together. There's always archaeological work being done up on the Acropolis in one way, shape, or another. You can see this big gaping hole on the one side of it. And that actually happened in the 1800s when there was a Turkish occupation of the city. They used this building to store gunpowder, which sounds really not swift to me. But naturally, there would be an explosion and kaplooey. So they have been kind of restoring this into its glory, as it were, its standing glory, for a very long time. And you will often go there and see them working on it. Not just this building on the Acropolis, though. There are other things up on the top to see. There are several buildings. The most beautiful besides that, I think, is this back porch. It's called the Porch of Maidens. It's on the Erechtheion. And these statues are support columns, but they're sculpted to look like women, and they're beautiful. These are copies of the originals, and I'll show you where the originals are in a minute. They had to pull them in out of the acid rain. They did that quite a few years ago because Greece, like so many countries for so long, suffered from such significant pollution that the marble that is outside in the elements and it's outside in the pollution was not faring so well. So they did remove the originals and replace them with exact copies that can handle whatever we can throw at them, thankfully. Also, what you can see from standing atop the Acropolis is looking down into this still in use ancient amphitheater. It's tucked right up against the side of the Acropolis, and they do use it for special performances. Certainly during the nicer seasons, right? But you can catch an opera here. You can catch singers and quartets and all sorts of things here. And you sit in the ancient stadium seats. Pretty neat. Just kind of to give you an idea about where are all the beautiful sculptures that might have once been up on the Acropolis. Well, they're all here in the Acropolis Museum. The whole two sides of this building are all windows. This picture's taken at night so you can see the sculptures. But during the day when you're in the museum, you can look at the sculpture and then turn around and see straight up to the Acropolis where it should have been. So you really get that juxtaposition of where the art should be and the art itself now protected inside the museum. They have also laid them out in such a way that they look the way they would have looked up on the Acropolis, and the pieces that would have been high off the ground are not sitting ground level. They're higher off the ground. So you get the same kind of perspective and stuff. They've done a lot of really great thinking into how they designed this museum. They built the museum, I want to say it was about 10 years ago, before the last time, maybe it was even longer than that, within the last 10 or 15 years. And they really did a wonderful job. One of the other neat things is when they built this museum, of course, you can't dig in the ground in Athens and not hit another archaeological site. And that's what exactly happened. When they built this museum, they uncovered more stuff. So when you walk into the museum, like the entryway to the museum outside, there are glass tiles on the floor so you can see the excavations going on underneath the street level. Kind of neat. Kind of neat. Yeah, it is. And then lastly, I will say this. This is the Placa. When you come down from the Acropolis, if you visit the Acropolis Museum, or you head back towards kind of the heart of town, you head towards the Placa. And this is a completely pedestrian area filled with great restaurants and tavernas, whether it's quick like bites to eat at lunchtime or a really great sit-down meal, awesome shopping, everything from boutiques to trinket stands, the works. This happens to be an extra gorgeous picture because the bougainvilleas are in bloom. But it really is, it's this pretty, it's like a neighborhood. And of course, there's plenty of tourists here because this is where all the great shopping and eating is. But you'll find plenty of locals here too. When you wander through here during the afternoon, the restaurant owners are out there trying to convince you to come back for dinner. They'll promise you your ouzo after dinner drink. It's a great place to meet people, the locals, and chat with them. It's a great place to come afterwards and have dinner. And because you'll be able to spend the night on the ship, you can enjoy an evening in Athens. So even if you don't stick around another whole day, which I think you should, you could totally, at the very least, hit the big sites, right? Hit the Acropolis, maybe stop at the museum, enjoy the Placa. There's another big great museum in town. It's the National Archaeological Museum. Has some of the most amazing Greek treasures ever, like anywhere. Are there. There's also the changing of the guard over in front of the Parliament, Syntagma Square. You can visit the Olympic sites, the modern Olympic sites, like the site, the ones at the beginning of the modern Olympics around 1900, plus the ones that are more recent from when they held the Olympics maybe 20 years ago. So you can see the Olympic kind of stuff that's in town. There's plenty to see and do, but it does not disappoint at all for a visit to Greece. So how are we doing on time, Christy? Oh my gosh, how did that happen? Yeah, you know, it happens. So let's see if anybody's got any questions or comments they'd like to share.
I have a question.
Yes.
When are we going?
I know.
Oh my goodness, it sounds fantastic. Both itineraries. I'm so excited. I want to go.
I know. This is why I pick good itineraries, because it makes me drool over them.
Fabulous itinerary.
They are. They're both really great, and they have so much to offer. And like I said, both of these people, the Scottish people and the Greek people, they love to welcome you into their cultures. So whether you're just strolling down a street and decide to chit chat with somebody about their beautiful flowers in their garden, or you want to talk to them about the art. Like the last time I was in Crete, when we were on that other cruise, Nancy, I bought a really beautiful vase, but it was a modern piece of art. It wasn't like a replica of an ancient thing. And I got to chatting with the woman who made it. And it was so cool to just learn about her craft and how it was a family tradition and all this. It's really neat to kind of, get to know people a little bit while you're traveling.
Absolutely.
So to just kind of wrap it up a little bit for everybody. So of course, your next best thing to do, besides getting excited about, like Nancy and I, about going on these trips, is to contact one of us about going on these trips, or any of the trips that you've got sitting on your bucket list. Reach out to us. We've got our phone numbers and our names and addresses on the next slide. I'll show you. But honestly, it starts with the conversation, and it starts with you. We get to know you so that we can provide you with the best advice and plan for you a vacation that's for you. It's not an off the rack kind of experience. We want to make sure that we pick something and work with you that's to your satisfaction in all ways. And in special thanks for your being here tonight and spending an hour with us. We've got two things going on. If you are interested in booking a qualifying Azamara cruise between now and October 7th, so that's 2 weeks from today, just a deposit, you will qualify for up to $250 in onboard credit. And that just basically depends on what kind of cabin you're interested in. So you can contact us about that. But more exciting, dare I say, than that, is Azamara's current promotion, which we will combine the two if you're interested. And this promotion is fantastic. I mean, honestly,
Fantastic.
I really don't get all salesy on people, but truly, this is a really awesome thing. They're offering a double category upgrade, meaning that you can get a balcony cabin for an inside cabin price.
That's crazy.
It is. It's a bit nuts. I just randomly looked at a glance at that Irish itinerary, and you can book a balcony for an inside price, and it'll save you $3,600. Yeah. And I got to be honest, the deposits are really small. They're really small. I want to say they're like $100 a person. They're really tiny. So let me tell you a little bit about that while I show you the next slide. The next slide has information on how to get a hold of Nancy and I. You can always reach us on our individual social medias, but go to our websites. You can see those links. You can, of course, call us or reach out to us via email. If you haven't already, by all means, enter the contest on either of our websites for the quarterly contest. We're giving away a Norwegian cruise to the Bahamas. The drawing, I believe, is October 15th. But one other thing I want to point out to you guys, and this is not universally true for all the cruise lines or all the tour companies, but they are all doing something similar. They're all doing a book with confidence policy right now, in one shape or another. And the one that Azamara is offering is a very, very good one, in that you can make your deposit, which is refundable, right? So you can make a refundable deposit. Let's say you fell in love with this Scottish thing and you were like, you know what, maybe I will do it, especially now because there's all those other promos going on. You make a very humble deposit. It really isn't very much. And the final payment isn't due until I think 60 days before the cruise departs. That particular one is in August of next year. So it's a whole year from now. So if it departs in August, that means the final payment's due in June. Yeah. So you can make a very modest deposit now and not sweat it at all, but just get excited about it until June. And then if you decide in June, maybe things are not quite as comfortable as you're ready to travel yet, you can get your money back. Or you could say, you know what, let's go ahead and final payment this and pay the whole thing. And you can still cancel your trip up to a week before the departure date and get a credit that's good for 2 years. So there's so much flexibility built in right now to give you the confidence to book a vacation, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, that you can take advantage of great offers and spend the time now planning so you have something really exciting to look forward to. Nancy, would you like to add anything, my friend?
Well, I already did. When are we going? This sounds awesome-amazing.
I know, amazing.
Awesome-amazing. Both itineraries, really fantastic. And
they are. They're
and
good
I think
stuff.
You reiterated, and Claude certainly was driving that point home, that you just don't get these itineraries on the larger ships. I mean, there's just no way. You can't get that, again, that intimate feel for each individual island that you're going to get on a ship of this size.
Yeah, and the ships themselves feel cozy. I remember saying that when you and I were on that ship, like it felt cozy. So I do want to thank everybody for being on our call tonight. We did record this, so it'll be up on my YouTube channel to share. So if you've got somebody you want to point in its direction, by all means do so. And if you are interested in speaking to Nancy or I about planning your next dream vacation, please contact us. We'd be only too happy to help you. Call me. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much.
Good night. Thank you.